No one's going to deny that lockdown has been tough for all of us. For some people, it's been really, really bad as well with income being cut. But for a big chunk of the country, it's actually meant that they've been spending a lot less money. No commuting, no going out, no holidays, all those general, normal, large expenses or everyday expenses that would add up, they've not been happening, which means there's been a decent chunk of cash left sitting in that current account. So in this video today, I want to take you through the 5 things you should be doing with that money, with the most important down to what you can do if you've got a little bit more left after that. I'm Andy Webb, welcome to my channel. I blog over at becleverwithyourcash.com. It's the place to go if you want to make the most of your money, whether that's saving money, spending money, making money, or just better understanding how to manage your money. All those things on the blog and here on my YouTube channel. Now, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell. That means you won't miss any of the videos that I release here 2 or 3 times every single week. Now, let's talk about this spare cash. Now, I'm talking about it primarily because of lockdown. All the lockdowns we've had so far, who knows, there might be more, but hopefully not. Hopefully they were going to this as the last lockdown we'll have. But actually what I'm going to tell you now is true for any time where you've got some surplus cash, some extra cash. Maybe you've had an inheritance, maybe you've had a bonus at work, maybe for whatever reason you've just not been able to do the things that you want to do. Whatever it is, you've got extra cash sitting there in your account. There are 5 things you can do with that money, or should be doing at least. Now, the number one thing, the thing before anything else, if you've got more money than you need, and again, this is more than you need, so you need to have worked out what you need for your everyday expenses, okay? You've got to be able to pay the bills, pay the rent, all that kind of stuff. But the number one thing you do with any spare cash is to clear your debt, or at least pay off as much of those debts as you can. And what I'm talking about here are your credit cards, your loans, anything where you actually borrowed money, catalog credit, anything like that. Pay that off with your savings, with that spare cash that is sitting there. Do this before you build up any kind of other bits and pieces. Spend it on anything else. You want to clear those debts. Now, there's a really good reason why this should be the number one thing, and that's because these debts are going to be charging you interest every single month. You know this, all right? You know you're paying for this. You know this stuff's adding up. You know sometimes those interest payments are so big that it's making you feeling like you're not knocking away at that debt at all. Sometimes people like to still have an emergency pot of savings at the same time, just in case something happens. But really the argument here is, if you have got no debts and no emergency funds, you can borrow again. If you've got debts and an emergency fund and an emergency comes along, you've still got those debts. And those debts are going to be more expensive. Now, the way you want to do this, you start off generally, kind of like the maths answer, start off with the most expensive debt, the one which charges the highest amount of interest. Clear that one first if you can, as much of it as possible, if not all of it, and then work your way down. There is another school of thought which is sort of psychologically can help people, and it's to clear the size of the debt. So let's say you've got extra money because of lockdown, whatever it is, you've got an extra 2 grand in your account, and you've got a debt that is 2 grand as well as one that's 4 grand. This is obviously a lot of debt there, but anyway, but let's say you've got that. Clear that one that is completely, and it feels like, right, I've only got 1 debt left now rather than 2. Choose the one that's best for you, but in terms of saving you the most money, go for the one that costs the most amount of money first of all. If you've done that and you've still got spare cash, or let's say you haven't got any debts right now, the next step is to ensure, the next thing to do with that money is to ensure that you have got a decent emergency savings pot available to you. Now, the rule of thumb has always been have 3 to 6 months of your main expenses available to you in an easy access account. This is money that you can get at any time. Money that is secured. It's not going to go down in value, lose its value. It's going to be there, it's available to you. Now, I've got loads of other videos you might want to check out about the best places for this money that's going to get you the highest rates of interest. So check those out. Got updates which come out every single month with the latest accounts. So do make sure you're getting the best money that you possibly can. You want to try and get an interest rate that is beating inflation if you possibly can. It's a lot harder right now than it has been, but it is still possible. But this is it. So build up that emergency fund. Now, we say 3 to 6 months. Now, if you have got this spare cash sitting around right now, you might be able to say, particularly the amount of time we've been in lockdown, the amount of money we've not been able to spend. If you have got that amount of money already, fantastic. Put it aside, and then it's there if you need it. Now, we talk about it in terms of expenses for months, 3 to 6 months expenses, because this is the idea that if you couldn't work for whatever reason, now, we've seen that with the lockdown, with the pandemic. That is a perfect example when some people haven't been able to work, particularly self-employed people, or in certain industries which have been massively affected. But this is also true. You might be ill, too ill to work. You might lose your job just for whatever reason in the normal world of things, not relating to the pandemic or the economy and the subsequent effects of the pandemic on the economy. That's the primary thing. That's when we talk about 3 to 6 months of expenses, so you can survive or hopefully get yourself better, feeling better, or hopefully get yourself a new job. You might want to look at making that slightly larger pot of money to last a little bit longer if you're particularly worried about that right now and you have the money available for that. So you could cover yourself for 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever it might be. You will know what you feel most comfortable with risk-wise. That might still feel like it's a long way off, even with the spare money you've got. Basically, whatever you can have in that emergency pot. Because it's also not just about your expenses if you can't earn an income. It's also about, the roof has a leak, the car fails its MOT. Having that pot of money available to you so you don't have to borrow. So that's the second most important thing to do with any spare cash you've got after lockdown or thanks to lockdown. Now, the third option, and this is where some people might disagree with me, but I'm going to say save a little bit more, potentially. If there's anything that you're particularly wanting to do, wanting to buy, that you know that actually, I really, when this is all over, I'd love to go on a big holiday, or look, I know that I need to get at some point a new phone, whatever it might be. If they're the kind of things you would normally sort of put on credit or borrow to be able to afford, whatever it is, why don't you start saving towards them as well? So you've got your emergency pot, that is for emergencies. Then you've got your separate pot, which you are saving up for that thing or those things that you want to be able to afford when things go back to normal. And again, this counts for any time of the year, any year that's going on, even when we don't have a pandemic and lockdowns behind us, any extra cash you've got, use that money, think about what those things are you might normally have to save for over a longer time or have to borrow for. Save for that now. Now, if there aren't any of those things, or you've still got cash left after this, remember, this could be a hefty chunk of money that is sitting there. If you aren't commuting every single month, you aren't going on these holidays that would have cost you a lot of money, you aren't going out, you aren't buying all these things that you normally would because the shops are shut, there could potentially be in some households a really, really, really healthy amount of money that's just sitting there in those accounts. Well, once you've had, I say, 3 to 6 months of money in a savings account, easy access savings account, and once you've got that, extra savings fund, again, few £100, maybe going to £1,000, something like that, depending what you're saving for. Again, sideline here, if you're saving for a deposit for your house and things, think about that, saving for that as well as part of that sort of package. But then any money you've got more than that, you don't need it in easy access savings accounts. If you have it in a normal account or a normal cash ISA or something like that, you are going to be wasting your money because the interest rates are so low right now that you possibly, hopefully, can afford to make it go elsewhere, thinking about something longer term. And there's a few different options here. You can pay them into your pension, so overpay into your pension. You could overpay on your mortgage, or you could pay into something like stocks and shares, ISAs, put them into investments. So let's deal with two of those first of all. This is my next level down, and this is about investing your money. Okay, so this again could be stocks and shares, ISAs, it could be your pension. Both of them are investing. This is actually quite a good thing to do with any extra cash because it's putting it away for at least 5 years. That's generally the rule of thumb when we're talking about am I putting money away for investments, because the markets can go up and down. They can be unpredictable. You might find with any money that is invested that the value goes up, and that's always the idea, hopeful that money will make money. And actually, generally, the returns you'll see from investments are much better than you'd see from cash savings accounts right now. But there is always the risk that they could go down. So the idea is you're putting it away for a long term. Hence why it's not in an easy access account. It's not your emergency fund. You shouldn't invest your emergency fund because that's there if you need it. If it was to lose its value, you've lost some of your emergency fund. Invest that cash, again, either in a stocks and shares ISA, which means the returns you make will be tax-free, or put it into your pension, which is investing, okay? It just means you can't get it for a much sort of longer time. You probably actually want to do a mix of those. You want to make sure your pension is getting a decent amount of cash, but you also want to maybe put some in those stocks and shares ISAs, because that means you do have access to it when you need it. Although again, ideally the time frame here you're looking at is around sort of at least 5 years, if not longer. Now, if you've never done any investing before, there are all sorts of ways to kind of get yourself into that. There are websites which use things called robo-advisors, which kind of help you assess your own financial appetite for risk, give you an idea of what you might be best for you, where possibly you could put your money, and you leave it there and it just manages it yourself. And that's probably a much, much better entry level way to tackle these things than going down, talking to actually getting people who are going to manage things for you. Because apart from the fact the fees are going to be more expensive, you probably don't have the time or the interest right now to do more of that kind of stuff with your investing. You can just put some money in and leave it and let it go. Obviously, keep an eye on it every year, see how things are going. But this is about a long-term focus. You don't really want to watch it day to day and see the things go up and down. It's probably the best way into it. There are other ways. You can do some more research on that. Lots of great people, lots of friends of mine here on YouTube talking about introduction to investing. So do check those things out. Pensions, again, if you're a workplace pension, you can often pay more into that, or you might want to set up your own one. Again, this all has fantastic tax relief on that, which is great. So you will be put in, let's say you put in £80 and you're a basic rate taxpayer, which means you earn under 50k. You put in essentially £80, the government essentially puts in £20. So you've got £100 going to your pension for every equivalent of 80 quid that you're personally putting in. So you're getting a little bit more going in there as well, which is why it's worth thinking about that, as well as doing the normal investing route. So that's if you've got a bit of surplus cash. Now, the fifth option, I mentioned it already briefly, is overpaying your mortgage. So if you have a mortgage as well, this is something you might want to do as well as that increased investing or starting investing or putting into your pension, or maybe instead of. Personally, I think a combination of all of those two things together is a good way of doing it and spreading your risk slightly. Because overpaying your mortgage can be psychologically a fantastic thing to do, because if you cleared your smaller debts already, but you've still got this big debt, the biggest debt you're probably going to have for your home, it sort of hangs over you, doesn't it? Now, it's not a bad debt having a mortgage, and otherwise no one will be able to buy a house at all, right? So it shouldn't be scared about it, and it shouldn't be something you should be prioritizing over other debts at all and other sort of emergency savings. However, if your mortgage allows you to overpay, and some of them don't allow it at all, some of them will put a cap, say 10% of the mortgage every year that you can overpay. Some of them, like my mortgage that I've got, means I can overpay. If I suddenly had a huge windfall, I could pay it all off completely with no penalties. That would be lovely. But if you do that, overpay every single month, you're doing a couple of things. One, you're obviously reducing the time it will take to clear the mortgage. You'll do that in a much faster, shorter period of time. But you're also going to reduce how much interest you pay on that total loan. So you're going to be saving yourself money. Not only will you be hopefully mortgage free sooner, you'll pay less money on your mortgage. Now, one of the reasons right now, what some people might suggest it's better to invest, and why I'm saying it's probably better to do a mix of investing and overpaying your mortgage, is that interest rates generally on mortgages are pretty low right now. And with all of these things, again, we're paying right at the beginning, and we're clearing debts first of all, because you're probably paying 20, 30, 40%, particularly if you're in your overdraft. Those sort of debts, very, very expensive. Coming down to savings where you're making maybe at best 0.5%, 1%, 2% on some of your money if you're lucky, depending what account you're with. But again, only on that small amount of cash. And then you're looking at investing in your pensions where hopefully over time you're making quite large returns, at least let's say 4, 5%, potentially, who knows, maybe even more depending on how you're doing it. Again, still the risk that you can lose some money. So you can see straight away there that the 20%, 30% charge on interest is going to cost you more money than a return on savings or investments. Likewise, the reason why mortgages right now, if they are 2%, whatever it might be, 3%, yes, that's better than you'll get in savings, but potentially not as good as you're going to get from the stock market and investing. So it's, I think, a nice balance between all of those things for that, those fourth and fifth step for any spare cash you've got. Once you've saved some money and paid off some debt and saved that little bit more, look at those other options. So I hope that's useful for you. Please hit that like button if this is going to help you better manage your money during the lockdown. Maybe hopefully make you a little bit of money, save you some money, either by clearing that interest on those debts or putting some more money aside. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos as well. Until next time, cheers. And here are a couple more videos you might find interesting.